Amaya Tebarria, the Director of the Family Associations Union, UNAF, and it is a pleasure for me to welcome you to the second day of these 11th International Days Against FGM, which are backed by the Ministry of Inclusion, Social Security, and co-financed by the Asylum, Migration and Integration Fund. I would like to thank the Ministry for their support and continue today's event by sharing yesterday's messages surrounding the intervention model which we introduced. Now, this intervention model is the fruit of joint efforts by UNAF and other expert institutions backed by 15 years of experiences and learnings. The model is based on the gender approach with intersectional femininity. It is intercultural and based on human rights and sexual and reproductive rights more specifically. Its action lines are fundamental: training professionals, social and political lobbying, developing specialized materials, working with the affected women and communities, intercultural mediation, and guidance for comprehensive care. And for this, it is crucial to have networking on a comprehensive community and leadership basis, led by the communities that are affected. This is our comprehensive intervention model, which was introduced along with its main axes and best practices. Yesterday, we focused specifically on specialized intercultural mediation as a key figure in ensuring sexual and reproductive rights. And we also got to hear about some public-private initiatives, also from the United Kingdom. And today we will continue with another strategic line of intervention by listening to best practice concerning community intervention. And we will also be sharing the challenges, claims, and other initiatives on a European level and Spanish level. We have a wonderful panel of speakers with excellent experience in the battle against FGM and against gender violence on the whole. Our aim with all of this is to generate a space in which to learn, to get together and to exchange ideas, and to foster the internationalization of pioneering initiatives in this area. Without further ado, I would like to continue with the first session. I thank you all for your interest and your participation in these events. Thank you.
Hola, buenos días.
Hello, good morning. My name is Pedro Pablo Madera. I work as the head of the Department of Comprehensive Care for Victims from the Subdirectorate General of Comprehensive Care for Victims and the Prevention of Gender Violence of the Community of Madrid. I've been invited to moderate, and I'm very grateful, and I hope to be a very discreet moderator because judging by the wonderful panelists that we have with us today, I don't think humbly there is very much I can say that will be more worth hearing than what they're going to say. So obviously I have certain knowledge about FGM, which is a form of gender violence, and it is legally classified as such in the regulatory framework that I have to abide by, which is the regional law on gender violence of the Community of Madrid. And FGM, as I have said, is explicitly contained in this law as a form of gender violence, which is, of course, supervised and intended to be eradicated, so to speak, by these laws. But like I said, I will not go on very long to talk about what I do because I think the speakers have a lot to say and they are the stars today. So I'm going to introduce them. First of all, I will introduce each of them and then they will each be speaking in turn. We have with us Hawa Touré from the Association of Mauritanian Dimbé Women in Fuerteventura. We have with us Patricia González Sánchez from the local Ministry of Equality of Alcalá de Henares in Madrid. And we have with us also a speaker from UNAF, as well as Akina one from Dublin. We also have Anna Widegren, hopefully I pronounced that properly, who will be sharing her experience and her approach as well. So I think now what we should do is start with our first speaker, who is Hawa Touré from the Association of Mauritanian Women. So I'm going to mute and let her go ahead.
Hola, buenos días a todas y a todos. Muchísimas gracias por la invitación.
Good morning, all of you. Thanks a lot for inviting me. Hawa, you have the floor. Please tell us about your experience in the association. Good morning. In Association Dimbé, the association was founded in 2017, but the idea to fight against traditional practices such as female genital mutilation and children marriage and forced marriage started before. This idea came to me first time when I was forced to get married at 14 with a cousin that was much older than me and without my consent. And I started fighting from, I decided that I have to start fighting. I had to give up my studies. I was a good student. I could have achieved a good result at university, but I was forced to get married, which I've never accepted. The targets of the Dimbé Association are to promote the integration of the members of the association in the socio-cultural life of the community, raise awareness of the reality of migrant people and specifically of Mauritanian women, developing cultural activities to raise awareness about Mauritania and its culture, to foster gender equality, promote and develop intercultural activities with groups from different areas of action, to be part of the association tissue and to reinforce it, to encourage Mauritanian women to get involved in other associations and social and educational groups, cooperate with entities and associations in projects fostering the same targets as our association, to prevent traditional practices which affect women's health and which violate the integrity of women as persons, such as female genital mutilation, children marriage, forced marriage. And it's thought that big women are more beautiful than thin women, at least in Africa. So we also fight against cliches. At the beginning, we started raising awareness of female genital mutilation. We started providing information on this practice for women. We had professional profiles, people working in the area, and we also organized workshops of sewing workshops and other handcraft activities. We also carried out talks in schools, in intercultural centers, to raise awareness in different groups of the communities, whether they were practicing female genital mutilation or not. And we introduced the subject of female genital mutilation. I apologize. Do not hesitate in stopping and drinking some water if you need it. Well, we carried out different activities to give visibility to this subject. We started working and celebrating 6 February, the 25th, and in February we tried to travel to Madrid each time, but this year lots of associations pulled together and we could celebrate the 6th February this year in a face-to-face basis. The most successful events were intercultural parties in which more than 15 origins were represented. We also worked with women that were born here in the Canary Islands, but from African origin. They provided their experience, they explained how they underwent female genital mutilation when they were very young. This was a very bad experience as migrant women, and the difficulties they had to face were the lack of access to public services, bureaucracy, and lack of a protocol of a coordinated action. The only support we have is from the welfare service in the department of Fuerteventura in the frame of our program of prevention, information, and on female genital mutilation. Throughout the program that we've been developing in 2020, we reached thousands of people in 2021 in the framework of our program to eradicate female genital mutilation through information training in the communities practicing it. We dealt with communities in Fuerteventura. The third program is to be approved this year, and it's a program in information and prevention and training in good practices related to the prevention of FGM. The work with the community women raised the idea that this was a taboo because this is something that is kept in secret. It's a cultural practice, and the way we approach and criticize this practice is very challenging. Most of the women working during the day, when they come back to their places at night, cannot talk about FGM at home, and they cannot share their knowledge on this practice. There's no protocol or no framework or no protocol of action regarding this practice. It's very difficult to raise this subject. There's a lack of intercultural knowledge from the side of the specialist in the area of FGM. However, the media have carried out an enormous work in giving visibility to our job. It's a good strategy to have our message going through and find a place to share information. The Canary television, press, radio, in whether it is in Fuerteventura, in Tenerife, and other islands in the Canary Island, have contributed to give visibility to the subject. There have been some articles published, but there's the risk of provoking some sensibilities, and therefore we face also the stigmatizing this speech. In our community, our work is based in carrying out the community work, in raising awareness, communicating, finding mediators and intercultural mediators, identifying and monitoring the cases, training the young people and leaders in the community who play an essential role in the eradication of FGM, and it's therefore essential to exchange information with the community in general. I want to pose a question because what you are explaining is really interesting. As you work at a community level, mainly in Fuerteventura, I wanted to ask you, what's your perception of how well your message is received by the authorities in Fuerteventura? Are they far away from your message, or do they understand it?
Nosotros desde Fuerteventura estamos
in our case, in Fuerteventura, we go to people homes. We are invited to tea, to have a tea. We are invited for dinner. When there's a celebration, we come, we give presents to the children. When someone passes away, we come to support the families. And this well received in most of the communities. We don't have the tradition of going to bars or restaurants. As we say here, we develop a proximity marketing approach. So we are working to reach the communities. Considering the time that we have, we've calculated 20 minutes per panelist. We still have a few minutes. I don't know if you want to think of any last idea or any message you want to explain. Yes, I want you to explain how we are working the last years. We've been working to eradicate FGM in the Canary Island, and after our work in the field, we found out that there are few families with Mauritanian origin, in which all of the mothers have been mutilated, and some are living in the Canary Island, and some are waiting for family grouping, and their children have the risk of being mutilated when traveling to their origin countries. FGM has become a reality in the Canary Island, and the approach from different professional areas is essential. We have to fight for the eradication of FGM. These families I mentioned are Mauritanian families, but there are also families from Senegal, from Guinea, and from other countries in Africa. So we started working at 15 minutes from Coralejo, and we work with the affected communities at the school, at the health centers, And now I want to give the floor to my colleagues. Thanks a lot for your intervention, Hawa. It was very interesting because we listened to a woman who experienced this practice herself. This provides a vision that cannot be learned in books. So thanks a lot for providing your experience. To keep close to the program, we are going to give the floor to Patricia González, our colleagues from the Equality Department of Alcalá de Henares. Patricia, you have the floor.
Pues muy buenos días a todas y a todos. Yo voy a contar un poquito la historia de cómo hemos llegado a tener protocolos en nuestra ciudad.
Good morning. I'm going to tell you a bit about how we established our protocols in our city. Alcalá de Henares is a pioneering municipality in the community of Madrid in terms of the fight for equality and the battle against gender violence. In 1999, we created an association for women. And during the first years, victims of gender violence were, let's say, they were taken care of on a volunteering basis because there was a lack of institutional resources and of awareness about this issue. After the year 2000, we created a local system for the eradication of gender violence. And this meant establishing a series of action protocols in our city. In 2004, we created the comprehensive network for care against gender violence within the Regional Observatory of Gender Violence here in Alcalá. Our work focuses largely on couples violence and less so on other forms of gender violence. Although in subsequent plans in our city, there is the intention to include other kinds of forms of violence and to raise more awareness about them. In the 5th Equality Plan of our city, published in 2012 to 2015, we included other forms of gender violence. Later in the 2018 plan, this was broadened to encompass other forms of gender violence and to raise awareness and promote the prevention of FGM. Our equality plans in our city have been approved unanimously in our plenary sessions so far. We will see if that continues to be the case. And our work is done in coordination with other areas, other departments in the city. And in parallel to all of these plans, Alcalá has a large migrant population, which means that we also implement a whole series of programs for the integration of migrant women. In 2014, when the Convention of the European Council for the Prevention and Fight Against the Violence Against Women was ratified, we struck a landmark. It was, let's say, before and after, a cornerstone, after which we began to address the issue of FGM with a study that involved field work, especially social and demographic work concerning the city's population, to understand the risks and the scope of the issue. In Alcalá, we observed that there were about 162 girls under the age of 14 that came from countries where FGM is a practice. And that gives us, let's say, a general idea of the risk that we are facing, although it is not clear what techniques are used or the ethnicities that these families come from. So we weren't entirely sure of the true dimension of the risk. To continue working in battling this risk that we had detected, because that is 162 girls under the age of 14, I think that really is quite a significant figure in a city like ours. We created a panel against FGM and we invited professionals from all different fields in an effort which could potentially raise the alarm as to where there is a greater risk of FGM. Then we also launched a series of awareness-raising campaigns for the society at large against this form of violence, and we've been doing that since 2018. And I think our awareness-raising activities have really resounded in the city. We have been collaborating with the University of Alcalá in seminars. We have published documentaries targeting students as well, university students, especially those specializing in education, in law, in medicine, healthcare, let's say. We've always aimed to include those agents of society who could ultimately help us to reduce these figures and to try and minimize the risk faced by these young girls. In 2017, there was the approval of the State Pact against violence against women, and the local institutions provided funds in an effort to address all of the different aspects. We conducted awareness raising and prevention campaigns to reinforce prevention in violence against women in different areas across the city. And here in Alcalá, we financed the design of the protocol of intervention for FGM. In 2018, there was also a complementary action launched to complement this protocol, and I wanted to share my screen with you in order to show you a bit about the different areas that this protocol we have launched in our city touches and encompasses. Let's see if I can share my screen. Here it is. So we have a local protocol for intervention in the prevention and abandonment of FGM. And what I want is to show you who are the agents that take part in this, because this is not an isolated battle led by our local council. It is also integrated in the Regional Observatory of Gender Violence. It is also works in coordination with the Social Action Council, then also the Service of First Care. It includes a series of different departments in the City Council for education, human rights, development and cooperation. There is the Social Demographic Observatory as well. We also have the local police force on board because we think that they can be a fundamental player. There are also healthcare service professionals included among these agents. And I believe that apart from awareness raising, we need help and support from all of these agents I've just mentioned, who are ultimately the ones who can raise the alarm. Healthcare services, teachers. Having that first-hand information, that frontline information from them. If we hear that, for example, one of these young girls is going to go on a holiday to her country of origin, we know that that is a time of risk for FGM. And we also have on board healthcare professionals from all sorts of different levels of healthcare, from the hospitals and small clinics. We are also constantly in touch with the courts of law, the prosecution, lawyers, psychosocial teams, and ultimately what we want is for all social agents and services to be united in order to cover all of the possible areas and to manage to prevent mutilation in these young girls in our population. Apart from all of this, we are also supported by organizations in our city, social action organizations, such as NGOs, who help us to keep in touch openly in, let's say, marketing efforts of getting closer to the families. Because often it is a difficulty trying to reach out to these families. The overall goal of our plan is to develop, in coordination with as many agents as possible, a form of psychosocial support for victims and a prevention and awareness raising initiative in order to ensure the effective abandonment of FGM in the municipality of Alcalá de Henares. We set ourselves a series of specific objectives to achieve this, which was to raise visibility of the resources and agents involved in our municipality, to create very agile mechanisms when it comes to referral and to coordination between agents, and to establish a line of work or a system of work that is designed to really raise awareness and promote prevention. Our objectives included implementing a local program for prevention and awareness raising of FGM, which has been incorporated on a cross-cutting basis in the form of workshops, campaigns, showing short films, and just anything to raise as much awareness and visibility as possible, and also launching a cultural intermediation program, because I think one of the shortcomings that we have is our ability to reach out and to truly to establish a good understanding between the cultures and the populations who are affected. And these efforts help us to reach them more effectively, which is often one of the greatest challenges we have. We've also developed the various objectives of our plan to ensure ongoing training for all of the agents involved, because it's all very well to develop a plan and to put people on board, but if you don't keep it sustained over time, then ultimately it's going to fade away, or it's going to become outdated or lose impetus, inertia. So what we want is for this to be a very much alive program. We want every year to conduct new training programs for professionals to keep the panel of professionals that we have really up to date and really engaged. At the moment, with the new project that we have just launched within the Program for Detection of Other Forms of Violence, we wished to define another strategy, another study to understand the framework and to define a series of very specific objectives that you will be hearing from the next speaker, just to really go one step further and to keep our statistics accurate. Our statistics in the city at the moment are very good, and we want to keep our cultural mediation with risk families alive and keep it going to ensure that we can really make sure that FGM reaches the figure of 0 in our city, and to help all of the girls, young girls who are at risk, by detecting these risks on a timely basis and being able to reach out to the families in question and avoid mutilation. And that is essentially, in a nutshell, what I wanted to share with you. I think all of this is very important because we're talking about female genital mutilation, but when you really go a bit deeper into the topic, when you try to reach these groups who are at risk, you realize it's not just FGM, that very often this is linked to other forms of violence, such as forced marriage, or simply just pure domestic violence, violence against women. So I think our work should always be joined to the overall battle against any form of violence against women. It's important, I think, to foster visibility, because society often thinks that this is an isolated issue, that it's something that happens far away, that doesn't affect them, let's say. And I think it's important for them to realize that actually it can be much closer than they think. It can be in their cities. So I think that giving this visibility and this support, especially support, of course, for the victims themselves and for the families who are at risk, is the most important thing we can do. Supporting the families and doing this intermediation with them is crucial. Well, Patricia, thank you very much for sharing your words. This has been truly interesting. I am also based in an institution like you are, and so this all sounds very familiar, and it's music to my ears, really, to hear all about what you're doing. Because also municipalities, cities are much closer to the citizens, much closer than we are. We are on a much more regional basis. And it's nice to hear how these municipal initiatives are actually being put into action more effectively, possibly than in any other institution. People have left a few questions here in the chat box. There is a question about the protocol, which essentially they are asking, is it publicly available and where can they find it? Yes, this is a protocol that is available in the city, but what they can do is they can reach out to us directly, because sometimes the websites are a little bit complicated. It makes it difficult to find. This protocol has been in motion for a very long time, and we have no problem sharing this with whoever would be interested in reading it. Is there an email address then that they can use, that they can write to you? Yes, they can write to the local Council of Equality of Alcalá de Henares, and if they contact us, then we will write back to them. Is there anything else, Patricia, that you'd like to share? That's all wonderful. Is there anything you'd like to share? No, let's carry on with our table, because I think that Sarahi is going to give us much more information about what we're doing. Okay, well, then I will follow your advice, Patricia, and move on to the next speaker, Sarahi Boleko from UNAF. So it's a pleasure, Sarahi. I'll leave the floor with you so you can share your approach.
Thanks, Pedro, Pablo, thanks to the representative of the government and thanks for giving your vision from an institutional point of view and from the municipal institutions and for explaining how you intervene regarding all kinds of gender violence and specifically in the case of FGM. I want to share my presentation if possible. As Patricia has explained, UNAF starts participating within the initiatives of the Department of Equality and engages for the eradication of any kind of violence against women, and specifically in the fight against FGM, and has a long experience in the attention and intervention in FGM cases and also in other kinds of gender violence, such as forced marriages. We started cooperating in this area in 2017, and we applied the local protocols, such as Patricia has explained, in the framework of the prevention and action against the FGM. We help in the design and the review of the protocol, but also in the training of professionals working in prevention and attention to women suffering from gender violence and FGM. And we trained other professionals involved in the attention to migrant women and women in risk of FGM. We intervened in the area of health regarding gender violence and together also with the local police. We participated in the training of these key agents, and it was a training focused on interculturality. As we mentioned yesterday, it's very important that the professionals and the agents that are present in the intervention services have the key tools and have the training needed to assist these women suffering gender violence. And they have to understand that they are African women and that they can act to provide attention from an early stage and considering the different factors involved. Apart from this, we provide race awareness raising activities. However, with the arrival of the pandemics in 2020, everything stopped as many research studies have explained women exposed to vulnerability situations suffered more consequences. This was due to the different realities they were facing, as they are facing different kinds of discrimination. That's why the pandemics and the socio-sanitary crisis made their situation even worse. From the Department of Equality of the municipality of Alcalá de Henares, they contacted us to retake all the efforts and all the activities that were being carried out before the pandemics. The idea was to restart working, following the local protocols to provide effective attention and assistance to. Sorry, I forgot to go to next slide. To provide assistance to migrant women who are in vulnerability situations, such as gender violence. What we thought of was a community project activating all the articles of the local protocol and involving entities providing services to women, professionals, associations, women, very same women suffering violence or women in vulnerability situations, and to expand this and disseminate it to the whole community. The activity and the program ended up with the name Program of Attention to Other Ways of Gender Violence. The idea was to provide an effective attention to other ways of gender violence and to other problems such as FGM. We focus specifically in approaching the situation of migrant women and women in risk situations facing this kind of violence. All of this was possible thanks to the resources and the funds provided by the Community of Madrid and the State Pact signed by the Community of Madrid and the municipality of Alcalá de Henares. It's very important to consider the importance of providing resources to the associations engaged in the assistance to vulnerable women. It's very important because these economic resources allow us reactivating local associations, local agents, and to improve the service and the attention, the comprehensive attention that we provide. Thanks to the resources, we can engage at the area of at the Department of Equality, and we can keep fighting to eradicate all the ways of gender violence. Thanks to this funding, we can execute our engagements and we can respect the Istanbul Convention, protecting women from all kinds of violence. The program of detection of other ways of gender violence has been executed as a community local project. And as I've said, it involves all the areas at a local level. And it has an intercultural approach taking into account the reality of all kinds of women, and it activates a role of all key agents and contact mechanisms among professionals from different fields. It has been established based on these main objectives, taking into account the needs of vulnerable women residing in this municipality, in our municipality. We have identified the needs, and we have researched how we are giving an answer to their needs from the point of view of the institutions. And the idea was to assess whether our attention was effective. At the same time, we've developed a project for the attention and assistance in order to prevent gender violence. This involves training the professionals in the different fields who interact with vulnerable women and linking all the professionals, health services, associations, women, vulnerable women, police, and the aim is to be able to provide a comprehensive service and assistance through a contact point, which is the point that is available for women. And then we have to raise awareness of the different ways of gender violence. This is very important because the action plan to fight against other ways of gender violence is addressed to women, and we have to give a service to them from a very first stage. We need a community service with associations with women, with migrant women participating in these associations. And we need to provide them the power to empower women so that they can defend their rights to sexual health and reproductive health. Our project is aimed at providing a social transformation from a local level with a positive and effective impact in all the areas of life of women. In this slide, I focus on why we should work in local community environment. This is necessary from a methodological point of view for a comprehensive intervention and to give an answer from beginning to the end to all the agents involved. Providing information on associations, on the reality of migrant women, improving the strategies to implement public policies, to providing information of the action protocols, and coordinating professionals to improve all these protocols of comprehensive attention. Last but not least, there are challenges and needs.
Es necesario un trabajo de continuidad.
It is necessary to continue working and keep counting on the cooperation between public and private institutions, including public authorities, local public authorities, coordinated with associations and with small associations, and betting on the support and the cooperation with small associations coordinated by migrant women. They are the first point of contact for vulnerable women, so we need to coordinate with them. This way we will provide access to public institutions. we have to keep improving the ways that these women contact us and get in touch with the services. And we should keep training professionals from different areas. Our idea is to foster mechanisms of coordination, informed coordination, providing information to vulnerable women on how to access the public institutions. So we also want to provide a referral protocol so that these women can finally access all the services. Before finishing, I want to say that FGM is a gender violence, a way of gender violence, and is a public health problem that has to be at the focus of institutional, private, and public institutions. It's important to approach this reality from the whole bunch of entities, and taking into account that women that have been victims of FGM are facing lots of different challenges from different points of view, and that they need a coordinated, comprehensive attention. That's my view. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Sarahi. You finished with a very good summary about the importance of coordination between public services and private institutions to raise awareness on the challenges of the fight against FGM. As part of an institution, I could say that we are sometimes responsible of the lack of access. We work on providing protocols, on providing informatic IT tools, electronic tools. And we consider the difficulties that we face in nowadays societies, but sometimes we don't focus on the access. Your comprehensive view is key. If our attention is not comprehensive, we are not providing a good service. So I want to thank you for raising this idea. I think it was very appropriate. As far as I've understood, you work in Alcalá de Henares, and you are connected to the work of Patricia. Well, I'll give the floor to the last panelist in the table, and we'll leave some time to questions and answers. I see that there are some already in the chat. Last panelist is Akidwa. I hope I pronounce it correctly.
Yeah,
Her name is Caroline. Sorry. Hello, Caroline. Good morning.
Hello.
Caroline is representing Akina, Dada, Africa, which is the association in which she works in the fight against FGM. As far as I've understood, she's going to speak English, but as Nerea mentioned, you have simultaneous interpreting available. So, Caroline, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Caroline Munyi, and I work for Akidwa, that is Akina Dada Africa, which stands for Sisters from Africa. And the organization Akidwa was started here in Ireland, in Dublin, 20 years ago. That is in the year 2000. So we just celebrated our 20th anniversary. And so straight to what I'm supposed to do this morning is to look at the good practices of community participation in the face of FGM. And how work began, that is that time 20 years ago, was because there was a lot of isolation in Dublin among migrant women, because now that time Ireland was opening up and people from diverse backgrounds were coming, and the women did not know what to do. So Akidwa came to bridge that gap, to bring them together. And one of the issues which came up was the issue of female genital mutilation. And so the people who were there at that time, I was not there, they started bringing this issue to the fore and creating awareness to the policymakers, among the women themselves, to talk about it. Because like when 1, 2, or 3 came out and they were talking about it, they knew that there were other women as well who are going through the same thing, and the numbers were huge. And the problem was huge. Like, women who were suffering, they did not know where to access services. They were misunderstood in maternity settings, in schools. There was a lot of, and then also the strangeness of it all. People hearing, especially the Irish indigenous people, hearing about this strange practice. And so, as you can imagine, Akidwa had a lot of work to do. And so, as an organization, what we did, and that is what we still do, we created safe spaces. And these safe spaces was for the women to come and sit down and then be able to talk about like what's going on in their lives, and especially in relation to female genital mutilation. Because as you can imagine, and as you can all appreciate in this meeting today, is that FGM is a very, very hidden practice, is a very hidden problem. And this is primarily because of the area of a woman's body which it affects. It's not like the kind of problem you want to go saying, like, it's not like I have a headache, I have a stomachache. No, it's not like that. It's a very hidden practice, and that is something we need to bear in our minds every time we want to talk about it, or we think we are going to bring people to listen to this. It's about the private nature of the problem. So that's the issue of that's where the safe spaces come in. And so we have to come again with the approaches. And actually my main work right now in Akidwa is coming up with these approaches and methodologies, which I call participatory methodologies. And our participatory methodologies are very, very benign. We like starting from a very, very benign angle. And because, as I've said, resting on the fact that it's a very, very hidden practice, you don't just go and ask someone like, so what is it? You have FGM and da, da, da. No. You leave the floor to somebody. You give that safe space to somebody. Sometimes when someone can come to the office and even they don't want to talk, they just want to go and come and keep quiet and take a deep breath, and we are okay with that. Your day will come and you'll feel better, and you'll be able to talk. And so we also carry out what we call vulnerability assessment as part of the good practices, because we want to see at what place is somebody, is someone who is sitting across you. So a vulnerability assessment when it comes to these safe spaces goes a long way, so that we can know, again, when we're dealing with someone at one-to-one level, where that person is, and also at community level, we are also able to gauge how ready the community is to receive the message. And as part of those methodologies, which we are calling participatory now methodologies now, which I want to get into, that is now the meat of the matter. We use like those participatory methodologies, which are very, very holistic at community level, because I'm going to talk about the work we do in the community. I'm going to talk about the work we do, just like, because I know I have 17 minutes, the work we do in the universities, the work we do with Gadashio Corner, that is the police, the work we do with the policymakers, and also the media, because we all have to work together. And also Akidwa, as the convener of the National Steering Committee on FGM in Ireland, also the work we do at that level, at that level of work. So when we look, because now we already know that most work which has to be done is at community level, but we also need to protect the community so that we can achieve maximum results, to making sure that FGM is at zero, to achieve zero, that that no girl is going to be hurt or left behind. So we are looking at making sure that FGM is stopped. We also also want to make sure that the women who have already gone through FGM, that they are also accessing services and holistic services. And towards that right now, what Akidwa is doing, we are campaigning for the establishment of what we are calling a national action plan on FGM, which is going to be government-led. And what that national action plan, what it's going to achieve is that we are going to streamline FGM services in Ireland. And by streamlining, we mean that a woman living, let's say, because although Ireland is small, it's also huge. So because we only have one clinic in Ireland for FGM, but when we streamline that, we know that there will be services available in all maternity hospitals, the 19 maternity hospitals in Ireland. So that means a woman will not have to travel all the way from wherever to Dublin and just to be seen. And that will take care of a lot of things, because some of these women do not have a lot of money. So a woman can go to the nearest maternity hospital, for example, and we know through that streamlining, we know that there will be somebody to see that woman in that setting. And so through streamlining, that will be that. And so you can see, and that is coming again from participatory methodologies, where women are coming to that space that now I can talk about it. I can go and ask for services and to be seen by any gynecology in Ireland, or a trained gynecology in the nearest maternity hospital where they live. And also our work, so at community level, and those participatory methodologies, which are very huge, and they range from like the women become stronger. As they become stronger, we escalate the strength of the methodologies, and also the involvement and our involvement, because we also have to look at the personal the personal strengths of the people who are working with the community, because not everybody can work with vulnerable people. That is something we also do appreciate as Akidwa. And so the work we do, the universities and schools of nursing and midwifery, also there's a lot of work, because we want the women, again, who go to the hospitals to be attended to by nurses and midwives who are culturally competent. And right now, Akidwa is leading in Ireland in cultural competency training. And actually, I had one training yesterday. So I lecture in that, in organizations which are offering frontline services, as well as schools of nursing and midwifery, as well as lecturing about FGM. So that is very, very important. And then among the guard at your corner, that is the police. Actually, Akidwa, we have managed to come up with a manual for training guards and how to talk about FGM, because again, as you said, it's a very, very hidden problem. You don't just go and tell people like, I know you guys practice FGM, this or that, because that will make people to go away. We want to create safe spaces, and so that is in place. And going back just slightly to the healthcare professionals, we just came up with the third edition for healthcare professionals, and now we are launching it all over Ireland, and we are launching it in health settings. Now that is now the third edition. And we also work with community, with policy makers. And like tomorrow, we are meeting the electors committee on gender equality. And that is also very important. And we'll be talking about FGM in that setting, that is in Parliament tomorrow. And I cannot leave our community health ambassadors who we select and train very, very carefully on how to work with members of the affected community to ensure that women and direct them to the right services, as well as, and not just that, but also to ensure that the dangers of FGM are created, how to identify a child at risk, and how to make sure that this does not, that child is not escalated to get mutilated. And then on top of that, then at NSC level, that is the National Steering Committee, we talk about FGM and how you can work as a coalition of those organizations to ensure that, again, FGM, that Ireland is, that no girl and no woman is left behind. And at policy level, actually about the FGM law, which came into place in Ireland in 2012, it was tested in 2020 when we got our first conviction here in Ireland, and someone who had subjected their 21-month-old daughter to FGM was put in jail and is still there. So so you can see that we have to work at all levels and how to make these good practices work, because now I understand we cannot use the word best practices is becoming shaky, and so you have to work with other entities, not just not just one entity. So the challenges which are now, as you can see, although I'm talking about the community, I'm talking about the guards, I'm talking about the hospitals, the nurses and the midwives. Then one of the challenge which I want to point at is like which focuses on us as practitioners, as people as who are working with vulnerable people. That is something we really forget. We don't look at those competencies which make this work, because already we need to appreciate, whether you like it or not, that FGM as a sensitive issue, that it gets at people who are working with the communities. It gets at them. So who are these people? How do we select them? How do we interview them? How do we get them from so that they can be good people who are well equipped to deal with the challenges which come with FGM? And that is very important, and that is something we forget, and that is one challenge, because we don't want like organizations which are working with people who are vulnerable to become revolving doors, where people be coming in and going, and then vulnerable people are always confused, and then new people are always being brought in to work with them or and to hear their stories from scratch. No. We want some continuity, and this will be first and foremost appreciating that it's very difficult to work, which opens scars, and that is where the issue of self-care comes in. And like Akidwa, when we were writing, because I participated in a big EU project, I remember one of the things we did was writing a manual for champions, and the last chapter I did was on self-care. We don't focus on that a lot. So we also look to look at the inside work which you have to do on ourselves before we think we can be good vessels to go and start interacting and start working with vulnerable people, so that you can be able to have the right conversations, because this one is not just any conversation you're going to have. And I just want to go a bit to the future challenge, because I know this is one thing Nerea sent to me. Future challenges in the course of this work. I feel we need like when I look ahead and the work we are doing, I know it's great work. Like even when I look at this forum is organized today, is about what we like calling a community of practice. And a community of practice is very important, and that will make, I know we have here Anna Findegren, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name well, Anna, and like a community of practice will be like a to-go-to place, and when people want to see the best practices of how to deal with this issue, I know we are seeing good practices. Good practices are that you can open up something and say, this is it, come here, and something which is open to growth, not something which you say now we already have this, but something which is flexible enough so that you can keep on adding and removing, because we know that community work is very dynamic. Things keep on changing, and things are changing actually nowadays at a very fast rate. And also to develop those personal competencies which will make us people who are able to work with people who are vulnerable, and then also that will be very helpful. And so like before I finish, I can see I still have some 5 minutes or so. I want to say that it's good work, and so like you can see like where Ireland is coming from and where we are, and you still have a lot of work to do, even here in Ireland, and I'm sure even as a coalition in the EU and elsewhere, because FGM is still continuing to affect women and girls. And so, as I've said, it's not just about girls not being cut, but it's also about women who are already cut. How are they being taken care of? Do they have enough services? Are we fighting enough for them? Are we talking on their behalf enough? And then those safe spaces, how safe are they? Are we ready? Because like in our practice, like what we do, we make sure that those who are working with vulnerable people, we make sure that we provide for them spaces as well to go and get seen by other experts, so that, because as part of their self-care, and that's one challenge I think I see a lot in this work, because we don't talk about that a lot. We just say, yeah, we are doing great work, we are doing this, and then you see that sometimes, although we are doing great work, sometimes it tends to get in us as practitioners, and you end up not being helpful to the community who are vulnerable, and as well as to yourself, because sometimes we need to create a balance, because some of these things we think we are dealing with them as professionals. There's a way they can interfere with our own personal lives, and that is not fair. So those boundaries, and so that calls again for organizations who are working in this area to ensure that we be deliberate, we be intentional in making sure that we have a self-care package, not just for communities who are vulnerable, who are affected by FGM, but also for practitioners, our community health ambassadors, our other ambassadors at EU level. And that is something I'm sure we can work on, or maybe some of us already have that, but it's something I think we need to keep on, to start emphasizing more, because I know how important this is, and not to deny that it's not happening, because I know we want to be strong, we want to show that we are resilient, which are all very good words, but sometimes it's not the story. And so that's why in our work, even when we look at it, sometimes I know we use like the word survivors, but as guys, as people, we leave our communities on days when they are not feeling like they are survivors, because someone can come to and say, yes, I'm strong, I'm a survivor, yes, we have this meeting, I'll talk. But there was a day a woman will come and say, no, today I'm not feeling strong, I'm not feeling like us. You have to leave that person, so we don't force this feelings of strength and resilience to people, because also that is not fair. And so that means we also have to work on ourselves we have to move together. And so I think that's all I have to say to you this morning, and thank you so much for organizing this, and I'm open to receiving your questions. Thank you.
Pues muchas gracias, Caroline, por la intervención. Ha sido realmente interesante. Además, creo que ha aportado, bajo mi punto de vista al menos, un enfoque de otro país.
Thanks a lot for your intervention, Caroline. It has provided a vision on the way you're approaching this challenge in your country, and you've showed the approach you have coordinating the authorities in Ireland. Thanks for sharing your work. I want to give the floor to the participants in the new table, in the second table of this morning. But before that, I want to ask a question to Hawa Touré. Hawa, can you switch on your camera and your microphone? Well, we are going to deal with some of the questions we've received through the chat box, but one was addressed directly to Hawa. It was written on the chat box, and the question is, how you do in the cases when the women don't consider a priority to deal with the subject or the issue of FGM. I think the idea is to explain how you deal with cases in which women understand that this practice is completely cultural and have accepted it. How do you provide your own view? I'll better speak in French if you don't mind, because I'll feel more comfortable in French. And in Fuerteventura, we know that women who arrive to the island, and also the men who come to find a way of living and to provide resources to their families in their countries of origin, they all attend the debates and the talks on FGM. We've trained some women who were conscious of their situation. We took a sample of 10 women who had suffered FGM. And apart from that, we organized a round table with men, with young people, with women. And we also talk we address the men because they have to get involved. We also provided training to young people. We provided leaflets to explain what is it about when we talk on FGM. And this is a small contribution that we've conducted. For example, it's a good idea to coordinate, to contact, to link these people by WhatsApp and to get them in touch with their community of origin. To sum up, we've provided training to fathers, mothers, and children, because in our association, we've understood that this is a family challenge, and it's very positive to work in this way, to take a sample of women who have gone through this challenge, who have overcome it, and they are the best people to present it. Then, when we explain our experience, we know that this can be explained to any family facing the same problem. We work with women who come from the same district, who share the same culture, and they can talk to each other. It's much easier when we work this way. This has worked really well. And then when we get in touch with women from the same culture, we share all the comments, or we share jokes, and it's a way to get in touch. I'm talking about our experience. I have to say that I also provided my experience when I explained that I suffered pain, but that I found a way to overcome it through the assistance I found here in my association and in other institutions. This is really welcomed by the women that do not know how to deal with their situation. I've also talked to my cousin. He also works in the fight against FGM, and he explained to other men that women suffer pain when they go through FGM. He explains that these women are suffering, and he shares this information with men. We do awareness raising campaigns, and it's easier to explain men from point of view of another member of their community. During the pandemics, African people lived without any forecasts, were trying to survive day after day, and we contacted families who had nothing. We've contacted these families so that they could explain their situations. We've pulled food, and we have provided it to them. And even if I receive, well, I have to say I receive lots of calls from people asking for help in this way. People are now reassured, and they come and they request our assistance. We work within the association, and this allows us to take the time to assist all the people requesting assistance. We work 24 hours, so we fight also to eliminate the language barrier, because we have people working in 8 different languages. This allows providing assistance to different families from different cultures. We have colleagues who speak Athenian and other dialects from Africa. This helps us help people, and it's essential to reach them. Women who need help can contact us at any moment and in any language. And this reinforces this link we have, because they can contact us whenever they need it. And we create a community which stays in touch, and the work we conduct within the community can also be replicated in Africa. Once they know that we have created this trust, this relationship of trust, and this personal relationship, they feel confident and they ask us to contact their families in Africa as well. And the discussions and the talks we've organized have been really welcomed by the community. Some people have also asked us how to work regarding clandestine migrations. We've received a list of people that were lost, and we've helped people look for them. Sometimes we cannot provide a solution, but the thing is that we have such a relationship that they request help from us in many different areas. I don't know if we can eradicate FGM, but we try to help in the measure we can. Thank you, Hawa, for your answer. You've explained really well what we were asking. The question regarding priority or not, the cultural barriers when fighting against FGM. And we still have 5 more minutes, so I will read another question that has been launched for all of you. You can answer it if you want. Someone is asking, what can we do to avoid that girls traveling to the countries of origin on holidays are mutilated? What can we do? I will say that we are quite active with regard to this question. We've found families that had no idea about this practice, and they arrived to their country of origin with their passport in countries where there's no law preventing the FGM, and that's why we are requesting to take action. It's really urgent to work with the communities of origins, because the families travel with their children, and when they are in their country, it's possible that they get their girls excised. Of course, it's a risk. This question was really appropriate because it seems that there's a high risk, and at an institutional level, we have to deal with this challenge and to provide the necessary tools to fight against this risk. It's a complex challenge, and we need to reflect on it. Can I take the floor?
Hawa.
1 minute, Hawa. Few weeks ago, we had a meeting here in Corralejo, and we had social workers coming from Caraja and Porto, and we discussed about this issue. we are now organizing a new meeting with women who suffered the FGM that will provide their experience and will ask to social services to translate into French the risk of their travel. We've provided a text so that the families can provide it to their families in their countries for years, and this was provided thanks to UNAF, to the cooperation of UNAF. If in our case, in Alcalá, when we get to know a case, a protocol is implemented, the court is informed, and we ask the family to sign an engagement so that we can avoid them having their girls mutilated. In Fuerteventura, most people are united and are fighting against this practice, but we have some cases of this practice. We work with intercultural mediators, and our point of view is to start working with mediators, because if we start denouncing, people will not trust us. So we start working with mediators, and we try to stop it this way. In the cases we want to avoid a children marriage, if we denounce it, the family goes away. They disappear, and we can't do anything. So we start working with mediators first. Yes, I think that mediation is important, and it's also effective to get them know the legal consequences. But of course, the first step is mediation. Hawa, I agree that the last step is denouncing it. We have to prevent, to avoid the stage of denouncing it. I wanted to talk about the importance of raising awareness and working with the whole community from the first step, and not waiting for the moment a family is traveling to their country of origin. We have to raise awareness among the whole community, preventing much earlier than they decide to go on holiday to their origin countries. If we implement, if we carry out this long-term work, we avoid this situation of having to denounce a situation and running the risk of losing our girls, our children. We can this way provide a comprehensive attention. I agree that raising awareness is our intercultural mandate. I like that expression, because we need to consider whether this cultural mandate has to be reviewed, or if we can continue practicing those activities, those cultural activities. In this case, we are talking about a behavior that is, of course, a form of gender violence that is against all human rights, and we have to stay firm against this practice. On my side, I have no more ideas to share, but if you want to provide any further idea, we still have 4 minutes, and Nerea has just warned me that we still have a few minutes. However, I see that the other panelists are preparing for next session.